30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Bills Mafia. Z-Body here with you Wednesday night. You know what that means. The Smoke Break. Live wherever you can find the Buffalo Fanatics. YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. From going forward, we're going to be doing YouTube exclusively. So make sure that you have the YouTube link each Wednesday, 8 p.m. That's where you're going to find me. That's where you're going to find the Smoke Break. It's my birthday eve. Last night on Earth as a 23-year-old. I'm spending my final day in the Jordan year with you as I enter tomorrow into Kobe mode. Mamba mentality. The big 2-4, and I'm bringing the Mamba mentality into the show with you tonight. We got a loaded one as we do each week. And let's jump right into it. News after news after news. This offseason's been a lot of fun, and it's been crazy, and the Bills are making all the right moves. And we got our guy. You knew I wanted him back, and that's the main story that we'll start off with tonight. So surrounding the Bills, the big story this week, of course, we got him back. It's Lil Dirty. And per sources, this is what I was told Brandon Beane said to McKenzie, along with the rest of the Bills players that he tried and succeeded to keep around this offseason, per sources.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
Per sources, like I said, and my sources are the best in the biz, so I'm going to take that for what it's worth. And Brandon Beane, he's got pipes like no other. I mean, he can sing, he can dance, he's got it all. What other reasoning would there be to bring back all these guys? How else could he do it? Unless he's busting out into a song and dance. Imagine you walk in, man, I really don't want to leave the Bills, man. I want to stay with the Bills. I got to figure it out. What's Beane got up his sleeve? How's he going to bring me back? Beane walks into the room. Cue it.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
That's how you build a winning franchise right there. That's how you keep players around. That's how you build culture. And we all know me. I'm a big culture guy. We all know that I know that Brandon Beane is a core element of that culture. And there's a reason that everybody's coming back. He's busting into song and dance. He's doing what he's got to do. He does it again. He does it again. Isaiah McKenzie. He's back. 1-year contract worth $1.15 million, $350,000 fully guaranteed. Now, I was a big advocate of re-signing Isaiah McKenzie because I believe he has a very unique skill set that can be utilized in a variety of different ways. And we just saw this a season ago. 7 total touchdowns in the regular season that came in virtually every way you can score a touchdown. 5 touchdowns in the receiving department. That gorgeous ankle-breaking 84-yard punt return against Miami. And, of course, the dime to Josh Allen against the Cardinals. I think guys like Isaiah McKenzie get their talent taken for granted due to the fact that they get a lack of snaps. And clearly he thinks so, too. He got in a bit of a skirmish on Twitter the other day with one of Buffalo Fanatics' very own, my man Ryan Sullivan, who voiced on Twitter that he thought McKenzie could be replaced in the draft. Well, he got dragged by Buffalo Twitter. And not only did he get dragged by Buffalo Twitter, but he got dragged by Isaiah McKenzie himself. So let's pull up the tweet because they're seeing what we're putting out here, folks. They know what we're putting out. So here's Ryan Sullivan. He comes in and he says, hard truth time. The Bills can replicate the role and production of Isaiah McKenzie with a day 3 pick. Mutes tweet. Well, Ryan, my man, if you're going to say you're going to mute the tweet. Because Isaiah McKenzie, he's up in those comments. Put anyone else in my limited role. You're not getting 8 TDs out of them, I promise. Boom. I don't think Ryan or anybody else expected Isaiah McKenzie to drop that bombshell. Next day, Isaiah McKenzie re-signs with the Bills. Ryan took it on the chin. He is the man. Ryan took it on the chin on Twitter. Rico talked to Isaiah live just the other night about it. He was a good sport. But at the end of the day, I think the majority of us wanted Isaiah McKenzie back. I'm not mad at Ryan for not wanting him back. I got nothing but love for my fellow Rochesterian in Ryan Sullivan. But I had to agree with the mob on this one. For the amount of production McKenzie delivered with such a limited role, signing him back for $1 million is an absolute steal. You have to remember, the draft is a crapshoot, and we all know this. You can whiff with the number 1 overall pick, and you can hit the lottery with the 110th pick. It's all a roll of the dice. And I would much rather stick with a proven commodity, and McKenzie is just that. There's no point in replacing a guy using a draft pick when you already have the guy right in front of you. And you're also not going to find a guy in the draft with 3 years of team experience. You're not going to find a guy in the draft who has that wide of a skill set. And you're also not going to find a guy who's as much of a team player as Isaiah McKenzie is. When discussing his contract, Marcel Lewis of ESPN tweeted something out that I have never seen before. And here's the tweet. Marcel Lewis says, when discussing the contract, Isaiah McKenzie said, quote, money is nice, but if we got paid in candy, I'd still stay in Buffalo. Let me read that for you one more time because it's real. Money is nice, but if we got paid in candy, I'd still stay in Buffalo. I mean, wow. I know I speak a lot about culture on here, religiously, in fact, but this is the reason why. Go ahead and find me a player who's ever said anything remotely close to that. I don't care who you are. That statement right there speaks to the culture that has been built in Buffalo and the guys that have been at the center of it. That's why you re-sign the guys and address other needs in the draft. You re-sign your core elements. Selflessness is of the utmost priority, it seems, on this Buffalo Bills team. And that statement right there is a clear-cut example of why you want a guy like Isaiah McKenzie on your team. He's selfless, and he takes advantage of all the opportunities given to him, even though they're limited. And it just feels that week in and week out during this offseason, we are reiterated time and time again how unbelievably strong the culture is in Buffalo. You've heard me say it before. We've seen guys demand trades, threaten to sit out seasons, not report to camp. That's non-existent in Buffalo. You have guys in Buffalo foregoing free agency, taking pay cuts, and you got guys like Isaiah McKenzie willing to take Snicker bar wrappers as currency to remain a Buffalo Bill. I mentioned last week, and it's worth mentioning again, and you know what? It's probably worth mentioning every single week. Do you realize there was a long period of time where Buffalo was one of those places that all the players throughout the league did not want to play in? They wanted absolutely nothing to do with the city and the organization itself. Now you have guys like McKenzie willing to be paid in Reese's cups so long as he remains a Buffalo Bill. So fans, as you watch this, never forget how far this team has come. especially in a short period of time. We had someone literally say if Beane came to him with a Halloween bucket filled to the brim with candy, he'd say, "Where do I sign?" That's what's going on in Buffalo right now. And it's an awesome thing to be a part of. It's an awesome thing to watch. And it just seems to be compounding. Like I said, week in and week out, time and time again, we continuously see how amazing the culture is in Buffalo. So when you get right down to the wide receiver core of this team, it's absurd. It's getting unbelievable. Who would have thought when Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones were running routes just a few years ago that down the line the Bills would have unarguably one of the deepest and most talented wide receiver cores in the entire league? And it seems to continue to grow and grow and grow, and people want to be a part of it. You have elite talent in essentially all facets of the position. And to me, McKenzie is the icing on the top of the cake. He's a guy that gives you additional options on offense that perhaps other teams don't have, and he's doing it for dirt cheap. A guy who seems like a fair comparison to me to Isaiah McKenzie is Taysom Hill. Now, Hill is more of a QB-centered gadget player, but a gadget player nonetheless. Taysom Hill just signed a 4-year, $140 million contract with the Saints. Okay, we're talking QB money here for a gadget player. His stats last year, 13 total touchdowns. McKenzie just inked a deal for $350,000 guaranteed. He had 8 touchdowns without the opportunity to start at the quarterback position for numerous games like Taysom Hill did. Oh, and those 8 TDs that Isaiah McKenzie had, that matches the same amount of TDs that Stephon Diggs had a season ago, who, if you haven't heard, is the best wide receiver in the National Football League. So the key now is to simply get Isaiah McKenzie more involved. My man Bruce, exclusive from Buffalo Rumblings, he made a great point the other day on a podcast that he was featured on. He said the McKenzie reply to Ryan's tweet that I mentioned earlier sort of hinted at the fact that McKenzie wants more opportunities on the field. And this is a point I've been driving home for about a year now. The guy delivers nearly every time he gets an opportunity, which is rare. Isaiah McKenzie is not an every down guy. And I also understand he's not meant to be an every down guy, but he deserves more opportunities. He delivers, so why not give him more? I hope during the contract negotiation period here that was a focal point for McKenzie, because he clearly wanted to remain in the Buffalo Bill. He clearly took a lower amount of money than perhaps somewhere else would pay him. There was talks that Chicago was interested in him. Who knows what they would have offered. He wanted to remain a Bill. But I hope his the one thing he wanted in the contract negotiation was to get more on the field. I hope the favor is reciprocated towards McKenzie for taking very, very bottom barrel money. But there were plenty of people advocating on Twitter that McKenzie was not an essential signing during this offseason, and I completely disagreed. The value and the production, it's unmatched. Good luck finding me someone you'd want to replace him with in the draft. All those intangibles I mentioned, what he's done on the field, you want a guy like Isaiah McKenzie back. I'm glad Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills got it done. So we had a little bit more news today in regard to Buffalo Bills signing. Bills sign Efe Obada. And as we all know, the defensive end position is an area that the Bills need to address this offseason. And they went and added some depth in that department this afternoon, signing the British native from the Carolina Panthers. He now joins Christian Wade as the second British player to join the squad from the International Pathway Program. How cool is that? But wait till you guys get a load of this man's story. This is unbelievable. Never heard of anything like it. I found the story written up on nyup.com from Ryan Talbot. If you want to go read the whole story, make sure to go check it out. Ryan's great. He does great coverage for the Bills. And in his story, he speaks on Obada saying that he was born in Nigeria. And when he was 10 years old, he and his sister were trafficked to the UK from the Netherlands and abandoned in the streets of London until social services found them. He eventually wound up going to college, discovered American football at age 22, and now he's a Buffalo Bill. I just don't know how you beat that story. That is an incredible, remarkable feat, and I am happy that he is now a Buffalo Bill. That is a story that you just can't top. Incredible stuff, and I don't think everybody knew that. I know I didn't until I read Ryan's piece, and that really blew me away, and I figured I'd share it with you guys because, I mean, what a story. What a story, and it's really cool to have a guy like that on the Buffalo Bills. So Obada was actually the first player ever to make a 53-man roster from the International Pathway Program as well. So his story just keeps getting more amazing. And that was when he signed with the Panthers back in 2018. Beane and McDermott, they snatch up another Panther. Coincidence? It's the Buffalo Panthers. You know it as well as I do. They snatch him up from Carolina. He had a solid campaign with the Panthers last season. He didn't play a ton, but when he did, he still recorded 5.5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, and 21 pressures. He's got some familiarity with the Bills. He had his former defensive line coach in Carolina, as well as his D coordinator for a year, was Eric Washington. So he's coming in with a bit of familiarity, and we'll see if that helps him transition a bit better to the Bills. And he's a guy who can play both inside and outside and add some depth to what we all know is a much needed position to have depth at for the Buffalo Bills. So just seems like another one of those quiet yet cheap signings for Brandon Beane. And hopefully we see what Obada has to offer on the field at some point this season. But nonetheless, what a terrific story, and really cool that he's now a member of the Buffalo Bills. So what a long week it's been. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while. And right after I signed off with you last week, a bombshell hit the Bills news circle. This was one that blew me away. Out of all the things that Bills fans may have been anticipating Brandon Beane to do in the offseason, I'm sure upgrading the backup quarterback position was one of them. What most certainly wasn't expected was Beane to upgrade the position with a 26-year-old, a Pro Bowler in 2019, and most importantly, the Nickelodeon's most valuable player. I, of course, am talking about Mitch Trubisky. This signing absolutely blew my mind. When I first saw it on Twitter, it was a tweet from Adam Schefter, and I think I stared at his blue checkmark symbol for about a full 30 seconds, just to make sure I wasn't getting played, because believe me, I have gotten fooled many a times by fake Schefter pages. But when I confirmed it was real, I was stunned. Up until that point, of course, there were talks that the Bears were going to be moving off Trubisky, but there were never any concrete rumors as to where he was going or when they were going to move off of him. Personally, when I saw that they signed Andy Dalton, my initial thoughts were that they were going to bring Dalton in and be that veteran guy behind Trubisky, try and mentor him, and maybe give him one last shot at remaining the Bears starter. But instead, Andy Dalton now becomes the starting quarterback for the Bears, and Trubisky is shipped off to the Bills for essentially an Applebee's gift card. A 1-year, $2.5 million deal, $1.5 million guaranteed. This is less than Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Andy Dalton will be making next season, despite the fact that Trubisky has more playoff appearances than all three of those QBs combined over the last 4 years. This is so far out of all the moves, the Bills have made. I think this one might be my favorite. The backup quarterback position in this league is vital, but it's often overlooked. If your quarterback goes down and you don't have a competent backup, you can essentially kiss your season goodbye. However, when you have a viable backup to fill the role, the team can still remain a contender. And we've seen this. We saw it last season when Drew Brees went down. Teddy Bridgewater stepped in and assumed the role beautifully. Saints didn't lose a single game when Teddy filled in for Drew Brees. And that helped propel Teddy Bridgewater to a starting job in Carolina. We also saw it with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Numerous occasions last season where the Dolphins just said, yep, you know what? Tua's not getting it done this game. Fitz, go in and win it. And we saw him do it multiple times. That also landed Fitz a starting job this year, most likely. And then, of course, most notably, we saw it with Nick Foles when Carson Wentz got injured. That season, Carson Wentz was going to win MVP. He goes down, and I'm sure Eagles fans are like, you got to be kidding me. Best season we've had in years, best quarterback play we've had in years. He goes down, Foles comes in. He wins the Super Bowl over Tom Brady. He wins MVP of the Super Bowl. They built a statue of him in front of the stadium. That's a whole other story in itself, and you know my feelings on that. But we all go into the season anticipating that our team will stay fully healthy. But we know in this league, it's virtually impossible. Ask the San Francisco 49ers. You go to a Super Bowl, you have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. The next season, anybody who's notable on your team gets hurt, and you don't even come close to making the playoffs. Thus far with Josh Allen, we have been extremely lucky. But the reality of the situation is Josh Allen plays an aggressive pit bull style of quarterback. He lowers his shoulder. He takes hits. He always goes for that extra yard. It's just who he is. That is in Josh Allen's nature. He's gotten better with it, but ultimately that is who Josh Allen is. And Allen's style of play is much more susceptible to injury than players who are more complacent in the pocket. And have a proper backup to assume that role is crucial for the Bills. Should anything happen to Allen, having a proper backup is crucial. And I think we all knew that Matt Barkley was not the answer to that potential scenario. I think us Bills fans really liked Matt Barkley as a guy. He was awesome on Twitter. He had a lot of fun with the Bills community. Great guy. I don't think we want Matt Barkley as our option to start should Josh Allen go down. And I don't think anyone would be comfortable with the Bills making a run like they did last year, having Allen go down, and then Matt Barkley leading the charge. It would completely flip the team. It would completely flip who the Bills are. I think Trubisky in that scenario is an ideal fit. He's young, still has a lot to learn and prove. He's hungry, plays a similar style to Josh Allen, which is something that Brandon Beane himself noted. There's no need for Dable to switch the playbook up if Allen goes down. Trubisky is capable of running the same offense that Allen is. Matt Barkley isn't. He's not nearly athletic enough. And this is another thing. I understand that Trubisky has not been an elite quarterback his first 4 years in the league. But he's been to a Pro Bowl, and he has 2 playoff appearances under his belt in just 4 years. I'm not saying he's nearly as good as Josh Allen if he had to come in and start. But if worse came to worse, I can't think of a better option. I understand Trubisky is what he is. But in 4 seasons, he only has 1 losing record with the Bears, and that's a team that has a lackluster offense at best. They haven't been able to figure out the quarterback position since 1950 when Sid Luckman was starting. The Chicago Bears are a poverty franchise when it comes to the quarterback position. Historically bad. So are some of Trubisky's shortcomings linked to the team that drafted him? Potentially. And clearly he wanted a fresh start because he's taking next to no money to be a backup. And he needs that fresh start. So I think it's really good for both sides. The Bills get a really competent backup. Trubisky gets a launching pad to perhaps go to another team after this year and reboot his career. Because look, if God willing, if Josh ever went down, I would feel much more comfortable having a 26-year-old 4-year starter with a mild degree of success than a veteran who hasn't seen the field in a meaningful game in years. So this is a signing that you look at first, it probably confused you. But then you really take a step back and you have to understand how incredible of a signing this truly was. And the fact that they got Trubisky out of all the quarterbacks available blew my mind. I was under the impression that even if Trubisky didn't start in Chicago this year, he'd be starting somewhere. There's plenty of teams who need a quarterback. So the fact that the Bills even got him to back up Allen is wild. The fact that they're paying him what they are to back up Allen is even more wild. Think about it. With all the quarterback needy teams, it's shocking. It really is. I figured there would be at least one franchise out there willing to give Trubisky a shot to start. I mean, think about it. Dalton and Fitzpatrick will be starting next season. Dalton and Fitzpatrick will have starting jobs next season. So I assumed Mitch Trubisky would get another chance somewhere. So it's not often you can get a young, talented backup at the quarterback position. Yet here we go again. Brandon Beane. He was able to get it done again. And it's not the most flashy signings, and it usually never is, other than perhaps Diggs, which was massive. We all know. But Beane works in silence. And you look around the league, the Bills haven't been flashy this offseason, but they sure as hell have been productive. So I personally feel a hell of a lot more secure going into the season, knowing the Bills have a competent and functional quarterback. Should anything go south with Josh Allen, you just simply never know. And like I mentioned, Josh Allen plays a very aggressive style of football. He was injured last year and played through it. We know it early in the year. So God willing, I feel a lot more comfortable heading into 21 with Mitchell Trubisky as the backup. So tip of the cap to Brandon Beane. It's one of those signings that didn't get a ton of coverage, mainly because it's a backup quarterback signing. It's not going to be a headliner, but Bills fans should be really excited about it. So kind of a slower week compared to the standard that this offseason has set for us. We're kind of hitting the brakes a little bit on the free agency. And I figured what better time than to get my pre-draft way too early bot top 10. My top 10 NFL teams according to me. Now, these are the 10 best teams going into the season that I think, looking at it objectively, should be looked at as 1 through 10. So let's have a little bit of fun here. I love doing rankings. Always a blast. Let's get a little music, and I hope I don't ruffle too many feathers here. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. All right, let's get a little music rolling, and let's get the bot top 10 fired up. Number 10, San Francisco 49ers. Look, how soon we forget. The 49ers had a 10-point lead on the high and mighty Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. How soon we forget. Last year, the team was ravished with injuries, as I mentioned just a bit ago. Worse than any team I've seen in a long time. And it caused a lot of us to forget how good this team really is. A healthy 49ers team may not be back to the Super Bowl caliber they were a couple of years ago, but they'll definitely be back in the thick of things in the NFC. It all comes down to whether or not Jimmy G can stay healthy. Something that seems to be an occurring issue, of course, for the quarterback. He just can't seem to stay on the field. But if he can find a way to stay on the field, the 49ers will find themselves back in playoff contention. Number 9, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are no longer a team to take lightly, and they only got better this offseason. The reason I take the Browns at 9 is because my next pick will show you. I think Lamar Jackson is better than Baker Mayfield, and I think the Ravens D is better than the Browns D. But with that said, Cleveland addressed a lot of issues on their defense this offseason. They added John Johnson. They added Troy Hill. Baker has proved that he is clearly their guy moving forward, and their running game is elite. It's one of, if not the best tandem in the entire league. Cleveland Browns at number 9. Let's move on to number 8, and it's those Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are always going to be a tough out, and they seem to hit stride towards the end of the year last year, despite sputtering out of control on offense against the Bills in the divisional round. But the Ravens are a team that have all the makings of a top 10 caliber team, but they're a roller coaster one at that. They have their ups, they have their downs, but I still look at the Ravens as a top caliber team. The Bills' playoff game showed that if you take away Lamar Jackson's ability to play the game his way, they're definitely going to be in trouble. However, it's a task easier said than done. They have a stout defense, and Lamar showed us he can arrive in big moments like he did last year. I know we didn't see it against the Bills, but with a Steelers team that has regressed immensely towards the end of the year like they did last year, it just feels like it's going to come down to Cleveland and Baltimore. And in that situation, I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens. So that's why I give them the edge. Let's move on to number 7, Seattle Seahawks. A lot of controversy going on with the Seattle Seahawks right now. I get it. And this ranking, of course, assumes that Russell Wilson plays for Seattle this year, which, unless something earth-shattering happens, it's the most likely scenario. We saw 2 shades of the Seahawks last year. The first half of the year, their offense couldn't be stopped while their defense struggled. Second half was the complete opposite. Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson need to set aside their differences. I don't know what the deal is, but if they are capable of setting aside their differences and working together, that offense has the talent to be one of the best in the league. Their pass rush does concern me, but if their defense continues to play like they did the second half of the year last year, Seattle will remain one of the best teams in the NFC like they've seemingly done ever since Russ entered the league. Every time you play Seattle, you have to take them seriously. And even last year, the Bills ran up points on them, but they still scored at will. Weird year for Seattle, but I think it'll be a bounce back one. The NFC is just not nearly as stout as the AFC is at this moment in time. Can't imagine Seattle doesn't wind up being a top 10 team again next year. Got a feeling I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one, but I'm sticking to it. Indianapolis Colts at 6. The Colts went 11-5 last season, which was a half game shy of winning their division. They were also a few coaching mistakes away, whether you want to admit it or not, from beating the Bills in the playoff game. They were a few bad coaching mistakes away from beating the Bills on the road in the wild card. They did all of this with a quarterback in Phillip Rivers who was halfway out the door. And despite Rivers being one of the oldest and most immobile quarterbacks in the entire league, the team still thrived. The addition of Carson Wentz, in my opinion, seems like the piece that is going to propel the Colts to a top 3 team in the AFC. I see it. Their running game is stout. The emergence of Jonathan Taylor came out of nowhere. And their defense was one of the best defenses in the entire league last year. If they were able to accomplish everything that they did just a season ago with Phillip Rivers, imagine what they can do if Carson Wentz returns to form. And now Carson Wentz is back with Frank Reich, the guy who helped him get to MVP caliber, the guy who he won a Super Bowl with. I really do think the Colts are going to be one of the top contending teams in the AFC come this season. All righty, we're moving on to the top 5, and this is where the big dogs are hanging out. LA Rams, welcome back to the top 5. The Rams have been a top-tier NFC team for the last several years, but they haven't had an elite quarterback. And as we know, that is the primary factor in a team's success. Yet somehow, the defense, along with a flurry of offensive weapons, propelled this team to the playoffs, even though Goff had a lackluster season and they no longer had Todd Gurley. I think the addition of Matthew Stafford under an offensive mind like Sean McVay is going to be awesome to watch, and it's going to be awesome for LA Rams fans. I think Stafford is primed to have his best year as a pro, and I think McVay will get the most out of him. I think that Stafford will get the most out of guys like Kupp and Woods. I think that propels the LA Rams to one of the top contenders in the NFC. The Rams, clear-cut, have the best defense in the league. Offense was their primary concern. They got a good run game with Cam Akers. They have good weapons on offense. And they shipped Goff off, realizing he was not the guy. Matthew Stafford has not had an opportunity to prove to the league that he is as good as his stats reflect. He has been off in Detroit with absolutely no help. This is his first real opportunity to prove that he is as good as a lot of people think he is. I just don't see McVay wasting this opportunity. LA Rams back into the top 5. Let's get to 4. Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is coming off perhaps his best season of his career. They just can't seem to get over that NFC championship hump. Every year they're right in the thick of things, but they just can't seem to get over that hump. Every year it ends in playoff defeat. But it really, really seems like Aaron Rodgers is hungrier than ever. He seems pissed. He just seems pissed. We saw him after the NFC championship game. Imagine being Aaron Rodgers, watching Tom Brady do it again on another team, but this time it was on your clock. It was on your watch. He did it in your home field, moved on, and won it in your conference. It had to have been demoralizing. And I think Aaron Rodgers comes back better than ever. Despite not being able to get over that NFC championship hump, they are always there. And if Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback, it's hard to imagine the Packers not being a top 5 team and an NFC frontrunner. And as long as Aaron Rodgers is still a Packer, the Packers will always be in the conversation for top of the NFC. Here we go. The only team that matters, number 3, the Buffalo Bills. This team is primed to narrow the margin between the AFC and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs seem to really have a gap between themselves and the rest of the AFC. The Bills are the knight in shining armor. They are the team capable of narrowing that margin. The Bills had an historic season last year with the emergence of elite play from countless players, especially Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. If Allen continues his trend of improving each year, the Bills will only be better this coming season, especially with a schedule coming up that, at least on paper, seems more favorable than last season's. The Bills, as we covered in depth, have brought back all their core pieces here in free agency. They added depth. And with one of the best wide receiver cores in the league, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and a star-powered defense that has ample potential, the Bills are clearly the first team right now in the Chiefs' rearview mirror. Comments are blowing up. You guys, I can't be that much of a homer. Top 3 is still top 3. Until we beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to get off my back. Where does that lead me to? The Kansas City Chiefs. Look, the Chiefs remain the best team in the AFC until they're not. I'm sorry. The Bills did everything they could last year to beat the Chiefs twice. Didn't work. It didn't work. They're just not there yet. But like I just mentioned, if there's a team in the AFC that is going to narrow that margin, it's the Buffalo Bills. It's the Buffalo Bills. They are right there in regard to perhaps leaping them this coming season. But last year, it just wasn't there. The Chiefs will remain the best team in the AFC until they are dethroned. They've been to the AFC Championship 3 straight years and the Super Bowl in consecutive years. And despite a less than stellar outing in the Super Bowl, there's no reason to believe the Chiefs won't be on the same level they've been the last few seasons. But I'm telling you, even though the margin between the Bills and the Chiefs is somewhat large at this point, I see it being narrowed this coming season. And now let's bring it to numero uno. God, it pains me. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are back and they're better than ever. They are only going to be better next year. I don't even know how that's possible, but it is. The Bucs hit stride after their bye week last season and never looked back. Not losing a single game and winning 3 straight road playoff games before dismantling the reigning champs in the Chiefs. And I just feel as though the Bucs, despite having a slow start to the season last year, only got better and are only going to get better. They accomplished the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl despite having no offseason, basically having an entirely new team, and also having a really shaky start. Let's not forget, there was a point in time last season where it seemed like the Bucs were not going to make the playoffs. Then they just couldn't lose. They brought all of their key guys back. I don't even know how it was possible, but they did. And with a full season under their belt and now a full offseason, bringing back all the key parts, they are once again the team to beat in the NFC. Now let's get to the teams I think are on the cusp of the top 10? Because there's a few. Starting with number 1, I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are going to step back a bit. They lost Drew Brees, and I think we see, because of that, a step back than what we're used to from the New Orleans Saints. It is yet to be determined what their quarterback position is, and either way, I have concerns. Will Jameis be less reckless, or will he be 30-pick Jameis? And is Taysom Hill really a starting quarterback in this league? Cap casualties also caused the Saints to lose last year's leading receiver in Emmanuel Sanders. He's off to Buffalo, baby. It also slashed several key defensive players from their team as well, including Janoris Jenkins, Trey Hendrickson, and Quan Alexander. So, Sean Payton is still one of the best coaches in the league. I trust that he'll figure it out. I trust the Saints will still be competitive. But you have to think, with the retirement of a great like Drew Brees, there has to be some sort of regression. So I see him staying right around the top 10, but I don't know if they will be nearly as good as they've been in the years past here. Titans. Look, the offense is high powered, but they just lost their offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, and he really seemed to revitalize Ryan Tannehill. We all remember Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill. He is no longer that. Now we also have Derrick Henry, the best running back in the league, and we know what the Titans did to the Bills a year ago. I hate talking about that team or that game. It was my least favorite of the year. But we know what the Titans are capable of. The problem is their defense is atrocious. Now, they did address it with Bud Dupree. It should help a bit. They're still going to be a playoff team with 7 spots available. But I think the Titans are going to come back to reality a bit next season. But I would be shocked if they're still not right around the top 10 as the season progresses. And here's my dark horse. It's the LA Chargers. And if you've been listening a lot to me, you know that I think the LA Chargers are going to emerge next season. They are my dark horse. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think they're going to finish second in the AFC West to the Kansas City Chiefs. They might even come close to a playoff berth. Herbert looks like a star. I love what I see from Justin Herbert. He's only going to be better next year. He's around great talent in Allen and Eckler, and they're only going to improve his skills as time goes on. They also have a borderline top 5 defense, and they have a new coaching staff. Anthony Lynn let that team down terribly last season. So hopefully that revitalizes things if you're a Chargers fan, not necessarily if you're a Bills fan. But I do think that they will be right around the playoff conversation come the end of the year. So those are the 3 teams I have on the outside looking in. But that's my top 10, and I like it. I like it. I think it makes sense. As I look at it, I look through the comments here. I understand everybody wants the Bills to be number 1. And you want to know what? They have a very, very likely shot of getting there at some point next season. Here's how I see it. If the season starts off next year with the Bills-Bucks, like I assume it's going to, if I had to put a bunch of money on what I think the first game of the season is going to be, I think it's going to be Bills at Bucks Thursday night. Make sure to get your Amazon Prime account, by the way. Bills-Bucks Thursday night. If the Bills beat the Bucks week 1, you can throw this power ranking out. Now, of course, I have the right to change my rankings at any time. But going into the season, it's undoubtable. The Bills are a top 3 team. And we'll see how the year goes. They have multiple opportunities to jump. They play both the Chiefs and the Bucks. Beat both those teams. You're the number 1 team in the league. But the nice thing is, when's the last time we've gone into a year and we're arguing the placement of the Bills within the top 3 or 4? It's just a hell of a lot of fun. I love it. But back to the point I was just making, I don't know if everybody has heard, but the rumor is, it might be finalized by now, but the rumor that as of right now that I know is the Thursday night games are now going to be picked up by Amazon. And unless you live in Buffalo, you're not going to get the Thursday night game unless you have Amazon Prime. I live in Rochester, and I just read this article the other day. Even in Rochester, we won't get the local market games on Thursday night. So everybody make sure to get your Amazon Prime account. And this is a shameless plug for somebody who is not getting any money from Amazon. All I do is give money to Amazon. But But I think that's intriguing to see where the league's going in that department as we look at the way technology is starting to transform everything. Gambling's getting huge. I think these streaming services are really going to start getting deeper into the NFL. The money is there. And believe me, Amazon's got plenty of it. YouTube's got plenty of it. Just weird. I watch all this evolve. My birthday's tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier, and you get older and you realize how much things are changing. Drew Brees is retired. Phillip Rivers is retired. Brady's on the Buccaneers. And I'm going to be watching football on Amazon.com. Weird, right? I don't know. Crazy. All right, we're nearing the 45-minute mark. And as you know, I like to end the show with the best thing I've seen this week and the worst thing I've seen this week. Best thing I've seen this week, the NCAA tournament. And I hope I got some fellow Syracuse Orange fans up in this baby. They have been rolling. What is up with the Cuse, the regular season? They're borderline unwatchable. Get into the tournament, and they just flip the switch. Incredible. The 2-3 zone, nobody can score on it. They come out, they beat San Diego State, and then they top West Virginia the other night. They made it close, West Virginia. But they got out to that nice early lead. Buddy Boeheim. I mean, could you imagine being the son of, undoubtedly one of the biggest legends in the sport and then performing the way he is? The pressure that must be on that kid. He can't miss. Buddy Boeheim is on a tear. The zone looks incredible, and they got Houston coming up. They got about a week to get ready for it, but I don't think anybody even saw him going this far this year. It was up for debate whether or not Cuse was even going to make the tournament, and here they are. We get to watch them another week in the Sweet 16. How about Oral Roberts? I mean, the second 15 seed ever to make it all the way to the Sweet 16. You have to love it, especially because they beat Ohio State. I'm a huge Penn State football fan. A ton of my family went to Penn State. Always nice watching Ohio State go down, and Oral Roberts out of thin air knocks them off, and now they're off to the Sweet 16. And how about all the Twitter jokes surrounding the name of the school? I mean, like, come for the upsets and stay for the Twitter jokes. You gotta love it. It's this tournament has been absolutely wild so far. Well, like it usually is, but this year just seems even crazier. It's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch. You want to know what it is? I think it's because we missed out on it last season. We didn't get the satisfaction of watching the tournament last season. That's when the coronavirus really exploded. If you remember, the tournament was set to start. They canceled the tournament, and that's kind of like when everyone was like, wow, this is pretty serious. This is crazy. Because, there's billions of dollars on the line. If they're canceling something like that, something's up, and that's kind of when the world flipped on its head. So really cool to have the tournament back. Worst thing I saw this week, and I'm not going to speculate a ton into this just because, this is a very sensitive topic, but it's something that is dominating the NFL news circle right now. And I figured, it's a huge story. It needs to be brought up. It's Deshaun Watson. This is unbelievable. I think that everybody was in agreement that Deshaun Watson seemed like an absolute class act, a stand-up guy in the NFL. It is now up to over 20 women who have accused him in some capacity to harassment. I don't think we've ever seen anything of this stature in the NFL. We have seen similar cases, but not nearly the amount of people coming forward and saying that they had an issue with a player. We've seen players have issues, sexually, domestically, but it's never been on this level. And Deshaun Watson, who was already dominating the news circle as it was he going to get traded? Was he going to sit the year out? Now it's up in the air whether Deshaun Watson will even be in the NFL anymore. That's how serious this is getting. And it really just came out of nowhere. And every single day there seems to be a new accuser and a new accuser. And, honestly, it's terrifying. Just somebody like that, I don't think you'd ever suspect it. And then out of nowhere, you have this amount of women coming out and having accusations against Deshaun Watson. I mean, we're watching a tragedy unfold in front of us. It's tragic history. Like I said, we really have not seen an egregious accusation like this to this extent with a player, let alone a player in his prime, let alone a player who was looking to get traded and perhaps, lead another team to success. Deshaun Watson, undoubtedly a top 5-6 quarterback in this league. And this is the talk of the NFL right now. And you know how these things go. These things don't go away quickly. And there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done. It is a very alarming story. And it's also a very interesting one to see how it pans out. Will Deshaun Watson play in the NFL again? And if not, it is an insane development. We've just not seen an issue like this to this caliber. So I don't speculate on it, whether guilty, not guilty. That's not my place. I'm just saying that this story is massive. And if you're not following it, look into it because we've never seen anything like it. And, I saw a tweet the other day and it defined it perfectly. If he's guilty, it's one of the most terrifying and egregious acts we've ever seen from a professional athlete. If he's not guilty, it's one of the most egregious and terrifying attacks on someone's character we've ever seen. Either way, this is a massive story with massive implications. And to watch it go down the way it has been going down, knowing that he was already looking to move teams. He was already looking to get out of Houston. Crazy stuff. So I'll continue to follow that. You should too, because as of right now, it is probably the biggest story in sports. Brooke coming in with a super chat. She's always here watching. Brooke, I appreciate you very much. She says, let's go Orange. It took me forever to get back to campus. Otherwise, I would have been here sooner. ROC people, Jefferson Road isn't a drag strip. So are you out in Henrietta? I'm assuming, Brooke, that's awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. A drag strip. Does that mean people are just going 100 miles an hour down Jefferson Road? I don't know if my Chevy Cruze can get up to 100 down Jefferson Road. So it's definitely not me that you see dragging down Jefferson Road. And my man, Bobby, the Instagram god, coming in with the super chat. He's the man. If you don't know, you should know. Bobby creates all the graphics for all of the shows on Buffalo Fanatics, and it's a thankless job, and Bobby does an incredible job at that, so he will get thanks from me right now. Bobby is always on top of it. Graphics, thumbnails, you name it, he makes everything look sexy. So I appreciate the super chat, Bobby, and thanks for all you do. So, hey, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining me on my last day of being 23. And I forgot to mention, we've made it all the way through the show, and I forgot to mention, I will be interviewing. I will have a special interview with a Bills player coming up very soon. Details to come. I want you to follow me on Twitter so that you can make sure you get all the latest in regard to that interview. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to launch, but I am doing the interview tomorrow. And I got to tell you, here at Buffalo Fanatics, we're getting it done, getting these players on the show. It has been awesome. I hope you guys have been enjoying the content. Rico, unbelievable job the other night. He had Isaiah McKenzie on the day he signed the contract. We're really enjoying having these players on. We're really enjoying, bringing you their story, giving you a fun, humanized side of the guys that we love watching each and every week. So follow me on Twitter at ZachB22. That interview will be coming out soon. I look forward to bringing it to you guys because we're having a lot of fun doing these. The players seem to have fun. We're having a blast, and it's always cool to see that side of the guys that we root for every week. So be on the lookout. Follow me at ZachB22. If you don't have Twitter, keep the notifications on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. And when that video launches, you will be notified. Until then, I'll be back here again next Wednesday, as I am each week. And I look forward to joining you again. Thanks so much for tuning into this one. Be safe. And as always, go Bills.